officials to be here back in New Hampshire, to see so many wonderful friends, supporters, elected officials, public advocates who are with us on this campaign, doing everything they can to make sure that we're going to be successful in the New Hampshire primary. Now, I just a few minutes ago officially filed my candidacy, which felt really good. But I want you to know my name may be on the ballot, but I really feel like this election is about you and so many others throughout this state and our country who need someone to both run for president and be president who will fight for you. And that's what I will do. There's so much that I feel grateful for already in the course of this campaign here in New Hampshire, because I've met so many people who I feel personally committed to, and not just them individually, but the causes and the concerns that they have shared with me. You know, I met a young man in Manchester who told me that his first real job when he was 17 years old was working as a cashier in the same store where his mother worked. And when he brought home his first paycheck, and he was so proud, he showed it to his mom, and he saw her face fall. And he asked her what was wrong, and she said, you know, they are paying you $1 more an hour than they're paying me, and I've been there 4 years. You know, that young man couldn't believe it, and he wants to do something to fix that. So nobody's mom, nobody, no woman is going to be shortchanged. And that's why I talk about and fight for equal pay for equal. You know, for me, this election is all about the many young people that I have met across the state, and who are having such a hard time affording college. They really have their hearts set on going to college, finishing college, getting their lives started, and it's really a struggle. And that's why I proposed the new college compact, so that college will be affordable and that no one will have to borrow a cent to attend community college or pay tuition at a public college or university. I have a plan to help you reduce the debt you already have because of your education. We're going to refinance the debt, save you thousands of dollars. You know, this campaign is really also, for me, about the grandmothers that I have met who are raising their grandchildren because of their own children's drug addictions. I hear that story everywhere I go, and I've sure heard it across New Hampshire. We need more treatment, we need more training, we need more reforms, so people suffering with addiction get help, not prison, and they can then take care of their own responsibilities. This election for me is about the young man whom I met from Brookline. And I asked him what he did. He told me he was a teacher. And then he said, but you know, I really need some help. That my mom has Alzheimer's. And he said, I don't have enough money to pay for a caregiver. And like so many families, I'm doing my best. He said, but I also have to work or we wouldn't be able to make it. I said, so what do you do? He said, I take my mother to work. We're going to have an even bigger caregiving crisis. And the burden is going to be shared much more widely among so many more families. And I'm going to do everything I can to provide some support and some respite and some guidance so that more families get the help that they need. And this election is all about the veterans who have served us, to make sure they get the health care and the benefits that they have earned and deserved. I'll be rolling out my plan about how to deal with the challenges within the VA system and the disability system so that our veterans get the help that they deserve. Now, I also will tell you that this campaign for me is very much about the woman who introduced me at Keene State not so long ago, who talked about her stepfather shooting her in the back when she was 13 years old. A man who should not have had a gun. At that same event, I met the mother of a 6-year-old boy named Dylan who was murdered at Sandy Hook Elementary. And this is a problem that we must address. 90 Americans a day. It's not just an urban problem, it's a small town problem, it's a rural problem. And I know there are common sense measures that we can take that will actually save lives, and I've been talking about that, and I will continue to talk about that, even though there is a big political hill to climb. But if we do it together, we can get universal background checks, we can close the gun show loophole, we can close the online loophole, we can close the Charleston loophole, and end the immunity and responsibility that was given to the gun makers and sellers. This campaign is also all about the many LGBT Americans, a lot of them I've met here in New Hampshire. Now that we have marriage equality, that is certainly worth celebrating, but in many parts of our country, you can get married on Saturday and fired on Monday. And so we have to stand against and pass legislation that will end discrimination against LGBT folks. Is all about how we fight together for the future that we want for ourselves and our kids. It's for everybody who's ever been knocked down but not knocked out. It's about how we can come together and find common ground. I'm not running for my husband's third term, and I'm not running for Barack Obama's third term, but I'm a proud Democrat, and I'm going to build on the progress that we have made together. I know the folks on the other side are not happy when I say it. It's just a fact. Our economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. You know, for too long, the Republicans have stacked the deck in favor of those on the top. And they've also, you know that old game you played as kids where you throw all of the cards up in the air? Well, that's what they did. They handed the worst economic mess to President Obama when he came into office. He had nothing to do with creating it. The worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month. 9 million Americans lost their jobs. 5 million lost their homes. $13 trillion in family wealth disappeared. What an incredible crisis. And the president doesn't get the credit he deserves for digging us out of the ditch. You know, this election is still going to be about the economy, right? That's what it was about when my husband ran back in '92 in New Hampshire. That's what it's still about, because even though we've made progress, we haven't made enough. Jobs have returned, but people's incomes have not been rising. That is the center of my economic agenda. Get those incomes rising again. Close those loopholes. Make the wealthy pay their fair share. Let's make sure that we have an economy that works for everybody again, where incomes rise for everybody who works hard. And I love it, you know, the Republicans who are traveling around New Hampshire, you hear them. They're going back to the same failed economic policies, good old trickle down. Hasn't worked, won't work, evidence is against it, but you got to give them this. They are persistent ideologues. They hang on to it in the face of the proof about how we need to run our economy. And then they complain. They say, well, you know, this recovery is so slow. Really? Why did we need a recovery. What was the original sin here? It was bad Republican policies that took a balanced budget and a surplus and destroyed it. So, we've got our work cut out for us. We can't let the Republicans continue to flood our elections with dark, unaccountable money. We need to make sure we have a Democrat in the White House so when there are Supreme Court justice appointments, as there will be, we appoint justices who care more about your right to vote than a billionaire's right to buy an election, for goodness sake. And we also need a Democratic president to defend the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans have voted to repeal it more than 50 times. I will defend it, but I want to improve it. We're not going to let them take us back to where insurance companies could deny you health coverage if you had a pre-existing condition and actually needed health care. We're not going to let them take us back where women, we paid more for our health insurance than men. We're not going to let them take us back to where young people no longer could stay on their parents' policies until they turn 26. But we are going to get the out-of-pocket expenses down, and we are going to take on the drug companies for skyrocketing prescription drugs. And we are going to defend a woman's right to choose and Planned Parenthood. Government, they sure love having the government interfere with women's health decisions, don't they? You know, sometimes when I get going on this about women's health and equal pay for equal work, you know what the Republicans say? They say I'm playing the gender card, and you know what I say? If being for that is playing the gender card, deal me in. And I hope all of you will join me. Now look, campaigning really is an important part of our democratic process. And people ask me all the time, my gosh, how do you do that? Some of you were nice enough to say thank you for doing it again. But I really believe in this country. I am absolutely committed to doing everything I can to make sure that every person has the same chance to live up to their own potential. I've lived that story, like so many of you. I'm the granddaughter of a factory worker. My grandfather came as a small child, an immigrant child, with his family to northeastern Pennsylvania, and when he was old enough, he literally went to work at Scranton Lace Mills, where he worked taking care of his family and believing in the future that they would have before him because of this country. And indeed, they did. All three of them, all three of his sons went to college. My dad became a salesman in the midst of the Great Depression. He had to hop a freight train from Scranton to Chicago because he heard there might be a job there. And then he joined the Navy during World War II, and he trained young men to go off and fight in the Pacific. And when he died, I was so touched. I was First Lady then. And I got these letters with pictures from some of the young men that he had trained. And I am so grateful for his service. And then when he got out, he started a small business that gave us a good middle-class life. My mother had a very different life, as some of you know. She was abandoned, neglected, rejected by her parents, sent to live with grandparents who didn't want her. She was working as a housemaid by the time she was 14. And so many people close to her had given up on her, but she never felt like our country did. She always believed that we were a country of second chances. And she worked so hard. She never got that college degree that she dreamed of, but she made sure that I did. And so when I stand here before you, I do so as somebody who is so grateful for my parents and for my own life, asking you to help me be the nominee of the Democratic Party and then to be elected president, not just to break that highest, hardest glass ceiling, although that will happen. America where everybody believes what happened in my life will happen in theirs. I don't want our country to just work for those of us who have been blessed, who have privilege and opportunity. It's not the way I was raised, although Bill and I have been so blessed beyond our wildest dreams. And now we've got this granddaughter who we adore, and we're going to do everything she can to make sure she has every opportunity in life. But that's not enough, folks. What kind of country is she going to become an adult in? Will it resemble the country we love? The country that's been that beacon of freedom and opportunity, of equality and prosperity for generations of people? And what kind of world will she find waiting for her? As your president, I'm going to spend every minute of every day trying to think about how I provide the opportunity ladders that Americans can, with their own effort and their own commitment and a little bit of help, climb toward their own best selves. It's not enough that the granddaughter of a former president can do that. The granddaughter of a factory worker and the grandson of a truck driver deserve exactly the same chance in America. That's what this